Chapter 43. Yudhir visualized the unknown client in his mind, a figure of wealth and power, and incredibly meticulous. Likely the client had chosen to hire mercenaries to ensure that even if the tail was stepped on, no harm would come to them. They had gathered and dispatched over 10 awakeners, probably figuring that would be enough to confront Kishir and obtain what they wanted. Had they known the extent of Kishir's power, they would have realized that a dozen or so were insufficient. However, by sheer coincidence, Yudhir's presence at the site was the client's downfall. The client had a proxy, you said? How did you contact them? They were always different people. Moreover, since we entered the Or Empire, the proxy never appeared in person. It was always through letters. Naturally, you burned all the letters? Yes. Kishir fell silent, seemingly lost in thought. His gaze drifted to the box Yudhir held. The box containing the red stone still radiated a heavy and sharp aura. All right, I'll ask one last thing. If you were successful in retrieving it, where were you planning to take it? Where could they hide from the watchful eyes of the numerous imperial soldiers patrolling the mountains who had been guarding the red stone? Where could these 10 or so people be hidden? Everyone's gaze turned to the intruder's mouth. That place, it's from here. Suddenly, the man who has been speaking choked and bent over, retching. The man's body started to swell grotesquely at a rapid pace, turning to violet hue. Seeing his eyes bulging as if they were about to burst, Yudhir felt an ominous premonition. A barrier. Instinctively, he created a barrier of water and air around everyone just as the man's body exploded. A black mass spread in all directions, releasing a toxic energy into the confined space. What on earth happened? After the explosion subsided, Finn mumbled, his mouth agape in a daze. The scene that had unfolded was truly horrific. Even the remaining intruders, who had been still alive, were all dead now. The room, from the ceiling to floor, had transformed into a terrible sight, melted by the toxic energy. If Yudhir had not quickly put up a barrier, they would have shared the same fate. What was that noise? Commander, are you okay? Gakane, who had startled and opened the door, was shocked at the sight inside the room. I'm fine. Is everyone else all right? Even Kishir looked around with a furrowed brow, seemingly surprised by the unexpected event. We are fine. We are okay too. After Yudhir and Eldor siblings responded, Kishir's gaze turned to the box holding the red stone. Yudhir subtly nodded to confirm that it was still intact. The red stone in his hands was safe, and so were his companions. That was a close call. I didn't expect they would have laid a double layer of the oath's prohibition. The oath's prohibition? But you said you broke it, Commander. Yes, I definitely did break one, but I didn't expect that they would use two different types of oaths. At Hind's question, Kishir let out a dry chuckle. It wasn't laughter born of genuine amusement, but more of disbelief that their enemy could have gone so far, something they hadn't anticipated. Originally, only one oath could be written at a time, but occasionally there are cases where people use illegally made oaths to impose a double prohibition. The stronger the prohibition becomes, the more terrible the consequences of breaking it. A wicked strategy indeed. We have been outplayed. During his time as the commander, Yudhir had seen people imposing double prohibition to control others. Such people usually knew the prohibition imposed on them very well and never dared to speak about it. But those who had just died unexpectedly seemed completely aware that a double prohibition had been placed on their oath. If they had known, even if Kishir had used his power to lift the prohibition once, they wouldn't have opened their mouths so easily. Did they deliberately create this situation? The body of the man, shattered into pieces by the swelling prohibition, was saturated with a potent poison, lethal at the slight touch. If it had grazed his comrades or Kishir, even if it didn't kill them, it would have caused severe injuries. Yudhir felt an astonishing, silent malice directed towards Kishir. Now with Yudhir present, they could fend it off. But what about before his return? Had Kishir also faced such attacks before, and was he truly unscathed? Commander, do you have any suspicion about who might be behind this? Yudhir asked Kishir quietly. Well, I'm not sure yet. Kishir shook his head, his expression inscrutable, making it unclear whether he genuinely had no suspicions or if he had some idea but did not wish to share it with them. Unfortunately, we couldn't find where they were hiding, so I planned to order General Gino to spread out and search. Now, the sooner we find them, the higher the chances of finding the traces they didn't manage to erase. After saying this, Kishir looked again at the box quietly nestled in Yudhir's embrace. However, we should not participate in the search and should leave immediately. Pack up and get ready to move out, despite the fatigue. Kishir seemed to feel strongly that they could now no longer remain here. Yudhir agreed. It was the middle of the night, and they couldn't move alongside the Peleta Knights, so it would be dangerous. But being away from this place, which was under the unseen gaze of unknown enemy, might be better. Understood. The team members, with serious expressions, began to exit the mansion one by one. Yudhir looked at the bodies strewn on the floor, the shattered windows and the broken ceiling, and the destroyed furniture, and thought that the mansion's owner would shed quite a few tears later. The elegance of the mansion when they first entered had long gone. Yudhir, as he was about to turn around, Kishir quietly called his name from behind. When he looked back, Kishir was staring at the box containing the redstone again. I almost forgot to return the box to you, Commander. Yudhir, interpreting the gaze as a silent command to return the box, reached out his arm. No, the box is fine, but your hand, what happened to it? Hand? Only then did Yudhir realize that it was not the box, but his own hand holding it that had caught Kishir's attention. That spot where the energy from the redstone exploded yesterday. On the back of the Yudhir's hand, a purple bruise had swelled to the size of a small bird's egg. It hadn't been that large when he had gone to retrieve the redstone earlier in the day. It was a tiny bruise, as if punched with a nail. When exactly had it grown this much? There was no pain, and he hadn't felt any signs of the bruise growing. So Yudhir looked at it in surprise. It's definitely bigger. It's not just my imagination. Judging by your expression, you only just noticed, Kishir said, apparently guessing the situation from Yudhir's expression and sighing softly. I wanted to see the extent of your abilities, but I didn't wish for you to get injured in the process. No, it's not that. I didn't know because it didn't hurt. So, what does that make me? Who said I treat you well? With that, Kishir extended a hand towards Yudhir, his palm facing upwards, as if inviting him to dance. Yudhir was momentarily captivated by the elegant movement, almost forgetting that they were inside a half-destroyed mansion. Put your hand here, I'll treat it. You should put the box down just in case it reacts. Are you going to use divine power? What else could it be? Kishir's response was gentle when Yudhir asked out of curiosity. He wanted to say it was okay, but his curiosity to verify if Kishir could truly use his divine power was stronger. As Yudhir hesitated and put the box down, Kishir immediately grabbed the bruised hand. Yudhir unknowingly tensed his shoulders. Relax, this is a pure contact with no impure intentions, Kishir whispered lowly, a twinkle in his eyes as he had sensed Yudhir's movement. I wasn't thinking that way. Kishir burst into laughter at Yudhir's stiff response. Living and working alone for a long time, Yudhir's hand was knotted and scarred. Unlike his, Kishir's hand was pale and smooth. But that beautiful hand was surprisingly cold and hard, like a swordman's hand hardened by the hilt of a sword. The touch of that hand, which he had been long forgotten, tried to force back memories into Yudhir's mind. Yudhir bit his lip and tried to suppress unnecessary thoughts. From Kishir's hand, a white light flowed out, gently covering the back of Yudhir's hand. It was an unmistakably divine power, even more certain when felt directly. At this level, it could be among the top ranks of the priests of the sun god. Isn't that surprising for me to use divine power? Kishir asked softly. Yudhir was startled for a moment, thinking his thoughts had been read, but then he nodded. Yes. Well, it's understandable, given that very few people know about this. Can His Majesty the Emperor also use such divine power besides you? Of course he can. The answer came easily, as if it was the most natural thing.